Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with CEO and co-founder of Focus on Words, writer and author Django De Gree II. This established author is a sharp and soulful critic of the systems we inherited, capitalism included. His work explores the quiet ways modern life convinces us to trade truth for productivity and purpose for performance. At Focus on Words, he's not just helping people publish books, he's building a category-defining technology company that starts with story and scales into AI-powered content systems. The platform helps entrepreneurs, creators, and thought leaders distill what they believe into a book, then trains custom AI agents to amplify their voice across every channel. Enjoy this story. Django, so great to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Of course.
So before we get into your world of words, being a CEO and co-founder of Focus on Words, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing so many things about our lives. How much of an impact did that time period have on what you're doing today, and how did you get through it?
Well, I would say it had a huge impact because I left the Washington, D.C. area and moved to Austin, Texas when things opened up. And I was just really on a journey of trying to understand what mattered to me. And being forced to travel in order to do some of the things that I wanted to do, I think really got me out of my comfort zone and made me start asking more questions. And I just literally, I think it was a catalyst for a lot of changes that I was willing to make in my life in the hopes for just a better tomorrow. And so I would say that without it, I don't know that I think I would have just been kind of stuck in the way that I was leading up to the time.
So let's get into the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis as a CEO, as a writer, and as an author. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. Kids always have a way of pulling the truth out of us. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room wants to know, what do you do for a living? How do you answer to him?
Well, I would tell them that I don't just do this. I am a product manager for a startup, and I love to write books. And so a part of that is getting to not only write the books, but I created a company to publish them. And I wanted to write the books that I wish existed because I read a lot of books, Brene Brown, Tony Robbins, David Goggins, all kinds of different books, and they never quite had the answer that was for me. So I decided to start writing the books that I wish existed. And that turned into Focus on Words. And then Focus on Words became publishing, and publishing became owning the entire product. So we do all of our own distribution, and it's just been a beautiful journey.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? Was it always to be an entrepreneur or a writer? What was your ultimate dream job?
I just wanted to play basketball when I was younger. The ultimate dream job all the way until I was a senior in college was that I was going to play basketball in the NBA. It was no doubt about it. And then eventually I had to just realize I wasn't going to make it and I had to do something else. So that was the dream from since I can remember to my senior year graduating college.
So talk to me a little bit about this love of writing and reading. What was the first book? What was kind of the gateway for you to love this world?
Well, I make a lot of content, and I was making videos from 2020 to, even today, I make 4 to 10 videos a day on Instagram and TikTok. And basically, as I was making content, I realized that I wanted to sort of write these ideas, and AI came out, and I wanted to just talk to AI about them and see what kind of answers I would get back. And as I was going through this process, it slowly turned into the book, which was I Hope You Wake Up. And the concept of I Hope You Wake Up is just the questions and the ideas that I was asking, and then the space for people to actually come to their own conclusions. So rather than tell them what to do, it's more of if maybe these things are true, or if you've ever asked yourself this question, now that you have the space, what would you actually like to believe?
You know, I remember in college reading a book about, I think it was called The Lies My Teacher Told Me, I believe. And it was one of those big moments where I started questioning what the curricula was and how they taught it. And it just seems almost like what you're doing and what that thought process is it's like alternative medicine. The benefits and the truth behind it is so much more potent than what we get fed and manufactured.
Yeah, I think the second book I just finished is called They Lied to You. And the big thing about it is that we have a bunch of presuppositions and assumptions about reality. And that actually that's what jades our vision of what's possible and not possible. And, if you start to ask questions, you start to realize that, some of the things that we think aren't possible maybe could be if we saw the world from a different perspective.
You must be getting a lot of really interesting feedback. What are people saying to you?
It's a mix. Some people hate me and some people love me. And I realize that both are because of their perspective on reality. For people who, you know, could not accept me themselves asking the questions that I ask, it's a lot of anger and frustration. And I don't lash out. I love people. I don't want, I tell people I can only give you what I have. So it's never a rage bait back and forth. It's always just me saying, hey, I understand why you're upset. And I just want you to know I love you. And I hope it's okay that you're okay. And then for the people who say they love me, at the end of the day, I also realize they could wake up tomorrow and hate me if they realize I'm not exactly what they think I am. So I don't take that personally either. I'm like, I'm grateful you guys love me today. I hope you keep enjoying the content. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I get it. The interesting thing about being on this planet is when you make that leap and want to get better educated and you delve in, you start realizing all these myths and misperceptions and inconsistencies that exist, which is why humans have so many problems.
hmm
So, my question to you is this: how did those seeds get planted into you where you had this thirst for intellect and knowledge and dispensing it in your own filter? What impelled you to get to this point?
Well, I don't actually know, and that's one of the things I've always tried to figure out. But I think any idea that I've come up with, I realize now is just a rationalization of like what I hoped it would be, looking back without the 2020 vision. So I would say what I know is that I was homeschooled until high school, and so I got a little bit of an alternative to most people's growing up, and I got to ask a lot of questions, and I just kept asking questions to the detriment of my parents and my teachers. So, I think maybe that had to do with it, but it's impossible to know for sure. I just am grateful for the fact that it happened for me.
What was one of the first early realizations that was contrary to what you were taught in school that blew your mind, that made you think, wow? And it almost was kind of a moment where you knew you had to dig harder for the truth.
Well, when I was in college, I remember I asked a professor why we were learning something, and because I now realize that I generally do a better job when I know why I'm doing things, right? Like I really struggled in certain aspects of writing and certain aspects of my life in school that now I do on a regular basis, and I realize I'd have to tie things back to like a cause. But I remember asking some questions of professors like, "Why are we learning this?" Because they said it's an open dialogue, and they typically got very angry with me about asking, but I remember leaving the classes like, I don't understand why you would be teaching me something that you can't explain to me how I would use it in the regular world. And that was where I actually changed majors and became a communications major in college. But it was very much that process that I started realizing that I should always ask questions, because sometimes I think they have the answer. So then I'm afraid to ask. But I realized some people don't actually have an answer. They don't even know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I get that. So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Who's been that hero for you? Who's been that inspirational force in your life?
Um, I would say a hero of mine. I mean, a lot of the people who I had as heroes have kind of fallen to the wayside, but I would say that my parents are both, heroes of mine. They both, showed me that there could be something that matters more to you than just yourself, because they, spent so much time just investing in me and trying to get me to a space like choosing to homeschool, choosing to try to teach me different ideas and contrary ways of thinking. So I would say that they are still my heroes for sure. But outside of them, like the biggest challenge is I would make a hero and then I would expect that hero to have all the answers. And then when they didn't have the answers, I'd be disappointed. So I stopped making heroes out of people.
So the interesting thing about the world of writing is that we have all of these documentaries and exposés on people doing things, whether it's, you know, a Michael Jordan documentary or it's a business documentary on a Titan. There's all these like behind the scenes and video, but with writers, it's more of a solitude kind of a thing.
hmm
What writer would you love to have watched create their works that you would have been fascinated by the process by which they came across their wonderful narratives that have been given to the world?
it would definitely have to be Alan Watts for sure, because Alan Watts was like apparently a complete alcoholic, but his books are absolutely incredible, and he's like was writing in a time where computers didn't exist, so he had to have been mostly writing on paper. So I just find him so fascinating because I think it seemed like he had a lot of answers that I was kind of looking for in regards to more spirituality, but also simultaneously was like a complete alcoholic, which you would think the two things can't exist. So that's what always fascinated me about him, and was what like really helped open my mind to the fact that it doesn't just have to be a straightforward answer. You know, you have so many people who become heroes and they're like, you know, I do all these things so well, I'm the person who you should want to be, but like Alan Watts was very much the opposite. So it's just so interesting that he was able to write books like that.
So let me ask you this: who were some foundational authors and books early on, and even in your life that you can go back to, or that were really foundational in how you question and approach reality, and the way that you write?
I would say I loved all of Alan Watts' books and I listened to a lot of his lectures, like I said. Don Miguel Ruiz, I read the Four Agreements, the Fifth Agreement, Five Levels of Attachment, Mastery of Self, and Mastery of Love. I read most of David Hawkins' books, like Letting Go is definitely my favorite. I can't remember the name of the author, but the book is called Courage to be Disliked and Courage to be Liked, which are just two like absolutely incredible books. Um, Everything from Michael Singer, everything from Carl Jung. Uh, I'm actually like now just peeking over at my library that I have over here. Everything by I actually read a book. Everything from Eckhart Tolle. That was the person I was forgetting. I was like, there's someone major that I am just like blanking on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eckhart Tolle is also like a big favorite of mine. And then there's also just sort of books that I think showed me other sides. So like Brene Brown, when you think about vulnerability, David Goggins, when you think about just like perseverance, and then I used to read a lot of Tony Robbins early on, but a lot of my mindset shifted to be more spiritual. But he definitely like helped me start to piece together like tool sets to really think about like what kind of life could I live if I really crushed it. And then Ryan Holiday for sure too. I mean, the way that he rethinks like ancient ideas around stoicism are super amazing.
So, what is the energy for you every day to wake up, to be an entrepreneur, to be a writer, to do all these things, and to also take care of your own soul? What's that thing that gets you to respond to the alarm clock first thing in the morning and get after it?
You know what's really interesting is I've told people that my life is actually the most fulfilled it's ever been. And I think it's just a matter of perspective for me. So I think about it every morning that like this is it. I am not going to get to do this day over again. There's no do-overs, there's no saves. Like this is the only life that I'm going to get. So to live it in any other way than what I would look back on and say like, you know, at least I did my best. I think is just like now it would be crazy. And I realized like I used to ruminate a lot on things I didn't have and problems I had and comparing. But when you really take a second to think about like this could be the last day I get to do things, but also not like this is my last day. I'm gonna go like do a bucket list, but like what would I look back at today of what I was building and say like, you know, yeah, I was building towards something that I really cared about. And that's just how I think about it every day. So I wake up if I want to go to the gym or I want to eat healthier or any of those things, it's like it's much easier because I'm always thinking about how I can do what I would want to do if it was, you know, if I was looking back at today.
So let's say you had a dream tonight. You walked into your childhood home of when you were 12 years old and you gave that version of you a book, kind of a coffee table book. And that
Mm.
young version looked at it kind of confused. And you looked down and said, "That's how your life turned out." Would that young version of you believe that your life has become what it is today?
Oh, no shot. Not even a little bit. No, I wouldn't even recognize the person. It would be like, what are you talking about? What even is that person?
What advice would you give that young version of you?
I would tell him to just keep asking questions. Like I wouldn't even say to do anything different because I really do think the journey is what has made my content the way it is and my books the way it is. Like if I wished for something to be different, then today wouldn't be the same. But I know that like the core of probably why I am here is that I just was not afraid to ask a question whenever I could get very like complacent in the space that I was in.
So, if you were to walk into a room of everybody that knows you, either in your realm of being a startup guy or a writer, and they may not know a whole lot about you, and you could walk to a podium and tell them a fun story about your life. Maybe the first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, one of the biggest risks you've taken, a magical place you vacationed to. What would be a fun story that might shed a little bit more light on who you are?
I would say the most interesting story about me is when Texas opened up during COVID, I woke up and I took the first flight there. I like met up with some friends there, and when I got back, I said I'm leaving and I'm going to Texas. I had never wanted to leave and move anywhere else. I had never like I always wanted to just live in Virginia and be close to family, but I had just sort of hit this point, and I don't know what it was, but I literally got in my car and just drove to Texas. I didn't bring any of my stuff. I mean, I brought clothes and stuff, but left all of my furniture. Hadn't even got an apartment, and just figured out everything on the way there. I just gave everything up. It just felt like that was what I needed to do, and it all just kind of worked out. But that was a pretty crazy. I think about it like moment where a lot of people are like, oh, you got to do a plan, you got to figure out what you're going to do. I was like, I'm just going to go. I have to go. I
Yeah.
need to go.
I love it, man. So, of everything that you've done in your life, and more importantly, evolved to, what are you
Mhm.
ultimately the proudest of?
Ultimately, I'm proudest of the fact that I finally opened my heart up enough to just love people. Um, like I tell, like one of my favorite quotes from my book was like, "Can you unconditionally love anyone if you don't unconditionally love everyone?" Because if you say, "I don't love this person," well, that's the condition by which you could start to stop loving the people that you say you love unconditionally. And so for me, like deciding to like give love whether or not I got love back from people has really like changed my life. But at the time I wasn't sure I would get back what I really wanted, and having just the courage to say I'm going to love people no matter what is like really changed my life.
So, everyone has a perception of you
Hmm.
family, friends, fans, everyone you work with, everyone that knows you, but you
Hmm.
run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, what's interesting is I don't really know who I am. I remember when I started to realize that like there's just a lot of versions of me, and they're all different, but they're also all me. And I have to just and I wanted to just be okay with that. And so I'm sometimes the funny person, sometimes I'm the quiet person, sometimes I'm the reader, sometimes the writer, but I just think like I've just learned to accept all of the versions of me and all the versions that will exist. I think one of my favorite quotes is, "You are not the same person you were 5 seconds ago, and you don't have to be that person." And that's like one of my favorite quotes. Like I don't ever have to try to force myself to feel a certain way in every aspect. I just show up, and whatever feels right, I am ready to go.
So, let's say we get off this call, time machine pulls up. You can go anywhere in human history and see one event unfold before your eyes. It won't create a tear in time. You just get to witness one event in human history happen. Where would you go? What would you want to see?
I want to see Jesus open the grave so I can come back and tell people what I saw. Because there's so much argument about whether or not he was there or anything else. So I'm going back. I'm just going to see him come out and be like, yeah, I saw it. Because I just feel like that's half the arguments that I have. Like people just argue with me about certain like that subject specifically for some reason, and I just would like to be able to come back and be like, yeah, I saw it 100%. Took the time machine.
You know, Jesus has had such a huge, enormous impact in every single way on humanity. And I got to wonder when I hear this answer in any incarnation of his life. I mean, I've heard him just having an average day, someone witnessing it. I mean, what do you think that way? I mean, do you think the magnanimousness of that moment might be too much for your brain to process?
I think it would be if I had to believe a certain thing. Like if I got there and the thing didn't open and somebody was like moving the rock and then was like, all right, cool, we got everything set up. Like that would definitely fry someone's brain who needed to believe that that didn't happen. But I'm just there to witness and find out so that I don't have to argue with people anymore. But what's funny now that I say this out loud, if I said I saw it and it wasn't what people said it was, no one would believe me anyway. So
Right.
if I actually had to do it over, now that I think about it, I would actually like. I think now I would actually like to be, if I could be anywhere, I think I would want to witness the first people getting the first books from the Gutenberg printing press, because
Yeah.
that's like I think like that's such an incredible moment of like people actually trying to like actually now suddenly being able to read. I think we like take that for granted today that like almost everyone, at least in the United States, has some capacity of reading or has the ability to read. I think it would be pretty cool to just like witness the change in people's eyes and minds as they learn to read.
So if anyone wants to get your books, When Stars Become Black Holes, They Lie to You, I hope you wake up. Any of
Mhm.
your books, anything reaching out, any of the good business, where do they go?
They go to focusonwords.com, and we actually have a service where for $20 a month you can read all of our books, and we are going to be releasing a new book every other day for the next like couple months. So if you sign up for $20 a month, you'll get all our ebooks for free and get all of our print books for 50% off. And it's our way of giving back to people so that they can anywhere in the world have access to these incredible books we're writing.
Perfect. Django, so great to meet you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. I love what you're putting out into the world. So it's wonderful to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you too, man. Thank you for everything.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.